God damn it, Bobby. Sorry about that. Discord decided to... Not Discord. The Scuff is eternal. Hello there, once again. I'm your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra. With me is good brother Monarch. I'm not doing the spiel a second time around.
Now, you may all be asking yourselves, wait, see you in hell? Haven't you been in hell the last 3 weeks talking about Megalos?
It's kind of an
Well,
abstract
this is a different
version.
hell.
It's kind of an abstract version of hell. Okay, how could I not make that joke? But, yeah, since it is the one-shot week, going by the 3-in-1 rule, I ended up spinning the wheel and this time landed on See You in Hell, which feels very appropriate given the recent release of Doom the Dark Ages. Now, this is a very light game. The PDF is only 61 pages, and thankfully it does have bookmarks. That is always nice.
It's kind of sad we can see the very small PDF and book have bookmarks. The giant full book, no bookmarks.
Yep. So, let me just go. No index, though. That is unfortunate. And, hey there, Ziggy in the chat. I see you. You can't be a true streamer without scuff. I've never used the term scuff in my parlance. I just go with snafu or anything else. Or just plain old bullshit. Or botching. Because the only TTRPG I know is D&D. The longer you stick around in this monastery, the more TTRPGs you're gonna know. I know everyone else is telling you, oh, the only one that matters is D&D. That I will be gradually disabusing of that notion. So, See You in Hell, if the cover didn't give it away, and I'm going to zoom in. Gee, I wonder what they could be referencing with this cover.
My Little Pony, perchance?
We can't do that. Hasbro's gonna send the Pinkertons after us. And Ziggy, regarding that, says D&D is fun, Hasbro not so much. My attitude is, I resent this idea that I have to treat one game as if it's the only game that exists. Like, imagine applying that to any other entertainment medium. Like, imagine applying that to wrestling and acting like the only form of wrestling that exists is WWE. Or that the only form of racing is Formula 1. The only form of motor racing, I should say. I think the entire city of Indianapolis would have a thing to say about that. Especially whenever the month of May comes around. But See You in Hell is a game that I believe is either dirt cheap or outright free on itch.io. Let me see. I often hear that, and I've often said, since when did geeks get so conformist? So I've got the itch.io page up. It is technically purchasable for $10 on itch. There is a web version that's available on the developers page, Silverhoof Games. But $10 for a 61-page PDF, or $8 if you go with their Patreon. I'll get to that in a minute. But this is apparently based on the game Our Bucket List, which I have not played. I'm not even sure if that's in English. It might be a Russian exclusive game. But oh, here's something nice. You can't see it because I don't have my cursor showing, but the table of contents has bookmark and some hyperlinks. Which that is
They
very
do not
nice.
look hyperlinked, but it is nice. I kind of wish the text was slightly different than the regular text, just so it's more obvious they're hyperlinked, but I like it all the same.
So we start off with a about the game, going into the setup that it's going for. The sessions are meant to last 2 to 3 hours without any preparation and resemble games like Doom, Rage, or Wolfenstein. One of these things is not like the other things. In this game, tough guys perform tasks to stop a demon invasion. Actually, it can be anyone who's capable to stop a demon invasion, says in the asterisk. Either bringing the villain down or going straight into the cauldrons of Dimension 6-6 yourselves. So, to play, you'll need the rules, task cards, and a character sheet, writing supplies, at least 8 regular D6, 3 for the players, and the GM gets the rest. And 15 tokens to keep track of rage. And they do call attention to the fact that ultra-violence is going to happen. Since we're invoking Doom and Wolfenstein, it better. But then we have the preparation section, which is going on what the game is about. The characters violently destroying demons, players describing themselves violently destroying demons. The GM reads out one of the possible beginnings and asks questions at start about the place. So then character creation goes in. But it looks like the game is meant to be for 2 to 4 players and a GM.
Which is pretty standard.
And
This is an interesting kind of flow chart with the preparation. Not really a flow chart, but I've not seen any other game we've done kind of set up how the game plays out like this.
which, given that
Some
this
of
is...
these I feel is a little unnecessary to include with stuff that's more mechanical. Like the character vividly describes how they do it. Seems like an odd thing to include in the steps.
I think it's a
Because
fine
you
thing to
think they
have
can do it
in.
Anyway.
I just think
Yeah.
it's too early. I've had the same problem with Journeyman Dev's games where he puts in the mechanics like in the first few pages after the table of contents, and you have no context for what it means yet.
Yeah, like the whole each character starts with 1 rage. That means nothing to me at all.
At least not
And
at that point.
Again, it seems odd to include that in kind of the flow of steps with vividly describe how you kill demons.
Mhm.
Because that doesn't feel necessary at all, so it's like they're kind of putting in actual important mechanical things mixed in with just flavor stuff you'd think someone playing this game might be doing already anyway.
Mm-hmm. Now, the whole thing of role-playing game and the game, we will be skipping that part because it's a lot. Because you've gone through what is a role-playing game section, you've gone through them all. But then we have character concept, which is a phrase explaining the essence. Who are you? Once per game, you can use the character concept to re-roll any dice. And a memorable item is something meaningful that connects characters to their past. You can't get rid of it, you draw strength from it, or you wear it for someone else. Once per game, a memorable item can be used to add a die to your roll. See Elements page 16. If the player describes how the item is relates to the current situation. And then we have approaches. Characters in See You in Hell are presented by contrasting approaches instead of a bunch of numbers. And your approach allows you to roll 2 dice when you use it, and if you want to use the opposite approach, use 1 dice. So the approaches are bloodthirsty or cold-blooded, tough or swift, confident or provident. And I guess these could be considered similar to the approaches that you see in like Fate Accelerated. But it does sound like you have that at character creation, you have to pick one and the other one is at a disadvantage.
I'm going to say I do hope at some point there might be a little more on the whole memorable item aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see one of them is an ugly handmade wooden toy, and my first thought, or just for their examples, my first thought is, how is that going to relate to anything as I'm murdering demons?
It's definitely the blank check problem that I've talked about in the past.
I'm going to say the limited amount of uses kind of keeps it from hitting the problem certain ones have, where it's so expansive, is like it just applies to so much. But having it one use, like, okay, at least the aspect of the blank check isn't going to be ridiculously abusable.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Yep.
I'd still like some more info on that, but we'll see if that comes up.
Mm-hmm. So then you go for it. Describe the suitable approach based on what you do and how. If you're good at this, take 2 dice, otherwise take 1. Add another if you have an element that can help. Roll all the dice and look for 5s, 6s, and 1s. Every 5 and 6 is a success. You've got what you wanted. For each success, choose 1 result from the list. Has succeeded if it is not connected with cutting heads off. Killed the same number of enemies as your rage and wounds summed up together, once per roll. Killed another enemy. Found a useful element. Discuss with the GM which one. If there aren't any 5s or 6s, the GM decides. A failure or a success with 1 option from the list below. There is more than one. Firstly, the player makes choices for each 5 and 6 on the dice, and then the GM makes choices for each 1. If the options are the character gets 1 wound, describe it. The character loses the element, a weapon is melted, help didn't get on time, etc. Or everyone is under attack, you need to defend yourself. Rocket fire, a fire blast, or a reactor explosion. Alarm, in the next scene add a danger dice, someone has run away, radioed, or ambushed. Or the situation became more dangerous. Toxic fumes, a launch of a rocket engine, a fault in the ground, this doesn't affect dice rolls in any way.
I'm going to point out I'm not fond of using the image of a black dice with the white pegs instead of just saying the number. Or just writing out the number. if only because you kind of have to stop and take a second to re-glance at it to see what the number actually is it's referring to. I usually like little things that add a bit of flair and flavor, which is what I think they're going for here. But not when it kind of disrupts the flow of reading it all.
But then we have Rage. Rage shows how deadly the character is. It changes throughout the game. In the beginning, Rage is equal to 1, mark it on the character sheet or use tokens. Rage increases by 1 when a player vividly describes the bloody death of an enemy.
So every time you kill an enemy?
Yeah. It may as well be.
I mean, it says that's what you're supposed to do earlier in that flowchart, so every time you kill an enemy?
Yeah. Every time you destroy enemies, you can kill as much as your rage and wounds sum up together. Now, a player can spend rage on rerolling any dice other than a 1 with a description of how you overcome an enormous obstacle or perform a tricky maneuver. Letting another player reroll any dice other than 1s with description of how you act together or how you help this person. So rage is a extra effort. And then we have wounds. Each character can get 5 wounds and continue to stand still. Wounds can be received as a result of your failure or when you get a 1 on your dice. The more wounds you get, the more enemies you can kill. Even though this game is about death and violence, you are so tough that killing you is a very complicated task. Characters can only die in the final boss fight. If any character receives 5 wounds, the Lord of the Underworld himself appears and the final battle begins. And that, which... I guess I can appreciate that whole teetering close to the line. Personally, instead of adding more enemies, I would just have it that you add more dice. But I guess this game wants to keep the die pool low.
But yeah, then we get into elements. Going to a battle barehanded isn't always the best idea. Sometimes you can solve a problem without the right... Sometimes you can't solve the problem without the right equipment. Then the players have to think of a plan or a tricky maneuver. Elements are something important to the story, something comes in handy once or several times when the player rolls the dice. The most common elements in the game are gun, but information, equipment, memorable items, and even civilians can become elements. When you need an element, tell the GM about it. When the GM will ask a few clarifying questions, and then decide how you can get the element. The GM can just give it to you, a player has to spend 1 success, the player makes an extra roll, everyone at the table participates in a scene that shows the way the element was acquired. So kind of like a flashbacks type of thing then. Then making the choice. The GM should consider 2 main principles. Getting the element should be logical, and the challenge for the characters shouldn't be too easy. After receiving the element, make the note on the character sheet. Depending on the situation and the description of the element, it can give you an extra die every time you roll. Sometimes several elements may seem useful, but only 1 die can be added to the roll. Sometimes you can lose an element because of a failed roll, 1 on the dice, or just because the story moved in an unexpected direction. The main thing is to follow common sense and logic. Cross out the lost element, it can no longer be used. You get an example there. See, the GM is free to simplify or complicate scenes while characters are looking for elements. It is important to remember, though, that it isn't the main part of the game. Don't give it too much time. Nevertheless, such scenes allow you to add the right accents to the story. Kind of like this in principle.
And And
I like the idea of having that flashback thing to kind of give you an out to a degree for just nonsense you couldn't have seen coming.
Oh yeah. I can certainly get that.
And I like it does specify these should not take up too much time.
I feel like that's a nice way to put a check on one particular bad habit that can happen, which is somebody getting hyper focused on some side thing.
Yeah.
I think we've all seen that at some point. But then we have tasks. Task cards are designed to create an interesting and unexpected story. How the main character's scope with assigned tasks makes the entire game. Almost everything they're doing is directly related to tasks on the card. During the first scene, after all the players got 2 tasks, each chooses one and puts the card on the table. They give an example of what to say on the matter. When the task is completed, put the card aside, it will help to fight the final boss. The task cards are on the back of the book. As soon as all the cards are gone from the table, players have to get another 2 cards from the deck, putting one in the center of the table again. So there will always be at least one task card on the table. It would be a great idea to combine all the cards on the table. Cards with failed tasks, if there are any, go to the bottom of the deck. Let's see, and then they go into the role of the game master.
Also, I did jump back to take a quick look at the task cards. There are a lot of simple things like explore the breach, stop this ritual. A lot of things you might actually see come up in a Doom game. Or Wolfenstein or the like. Or just stuff you're doing through a stage and level. It's on point and you got a good variety there to work with.
Oh yeah, I can certainly get that. Now, beyond the advice that's for the game master, which is, I like the set of principles that they have, but it's not something we need to focus on. And we have roll or not to roll about when the right time to roll. And then we start out with with introductory monologues that can be used. These are basically the overtures for a scenario. And then beyond that is the questions that start. Basically the questions that kind of set up the setting. What planet is this? What are people doing there? What does the landscape look like? And there's questions to ask during the game. The game is focused on co-creation, which is why the GM often gives the director's chair to someone else. Moving on to a new scene, ask, what is this place and what does it look like? How has the demonic presence distorted him? What will stand in your way here? Do so as often as possible to evenly distribute the story between all participants. And it goes into transition scenes and scenes, which is kind of self-explanatory, as well as key scenes. And then danger. At the beginning of the game, the GM takes a die for each player. That's danger dice or just danger. At the beginning of a key scene, the GM rolls all of the danger dice, and the sum determines the number of enemies in the scene. And we have an example set up of Inhabitants of Dimension 66. And I have a feeling a lot of these are legally distinct versions of Doom monsters. Especially the Knight of Hell. Can't imagine what that is. I could bring up the fact that we have a fiend, like from Quake, but fiend is a genericized term. But players reduce danger by 1 for each killed demon. If all the enemies are torn apart, nothing prevents you from completing the task. When characters move on to a new task, add 1 dice to the pool of danger. Danger constantly grows throughout the game. Don't forget to sum everything up by the end of each task. Describe what happened and how it affects the further chain of events, so that players can see what they've achieved. Though you can do an abstract version in the form of Danger Plus. In this case, Danger shows not the number of opponents, but the level of difficulty of the scene. And there is a compromise between these two approaches, an enemy randomizer. Each die shows a specific opponent or a group of opponents. A Fiend, a Banshee, an Iron Claw, a Hell Knight, or a squad of 5 or 6 possessed.
Is that really much more complicated where you'd have to get used to the rules first?
Not by much. But then we have...
I'm fine having both options, mind you. It's just that just seems like an unnecessary thing to add in.
Then we have the boss fight. When one of the characters gets the 5th wound, a boss fight begins. The Lord of the Dimension 66 is so pissed with the impudent heroes that he decides to interfere himself. Roll all the danger dice. They now represent the body parts of the main villain and his wards. Then describe the appearance of the Lord of Hell, whether it be a 2-headed breaker, a puke demon, a hungry eater, a spider head, a beholder, or a creeping fear. In the middle of the boss fight, there is a twist. Choose the right moment or simply cut the value of the danger dice in half and make the change when it's over. The twist is a change in the rules of the game in order to make the scene more diverse and interesting. It can be one of the following. Protection, the boss takes cover from attacks. A character must spend 1 success to get to the boss to overcome the barrier. Charging, they're preparing for a charge attack. Some of the players will spend success to stop charging, otherwise all the characters get injured. Or the choice is about something important that has to be put on the stake. Use this twist if the characters have something to lose. Characters can only die in the boss fight. The character receives the 6th wound, death comes with agony. Choose from the list, let the player roll the dice or tell your version. This is basically how you die a not subtle death. Task cards can help players in the boss battle. For each completed task, players can reroll any die, even if it's a 1. Then we have some randomizers for various things like equipment, locations. Although I do have to like some of the equipment we have here. Some of it is pretty standard, but then there's things like a electric pitchfork, a hover bike as equipment. Okay.
Metal glue can or laughing worm.
Mm-hmm. Then locations that you could possibly use. One of the locations is Miami Beach. Miami infested by hell, so only slightly worse. And a randomization of obstacle. I'd say this is for those who, if you need to throw in an obstacle and don't quite know what to go with. And enemies of mankind. What sort of other things you could use instead of demons, such as giant beetles if you want to go Starship Troopers. or aliens, or machines. I do like that they brought up virus in this.
Noir Automata. That may have been a typo.
In their defense, English is not their first language.
Yeah. And we haven't. I've actually seen fewer typos in this in some of the books we've read from people whose English is their first language. So yes, I will give that a pass.
Yeah.
I just thought Noir Automata was kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. But then we have a thing of the GM's notes that I think is meant to be cut off and used as a card or something like that.
Yeah, it does not read nicely in PDF form.
No.
I am sure this would be perfectly acceptable as a printout, though.
Then we have the character sheet of a sort. Oh, it's a very, very slim sheet. And
You almost just don't even need to worry about it. It's so simple. You could just use a piece of paper and keep track of everything just fine.
I guess that's why they have so many copies of the sheet. But then we have the task cards. And the cards
As I mentioned before, there's a good amount of these.
So, I realized that was a lot of skimming and a very brief affair, but that's the gist of See You in Hell. So, with that in mind, what did you happen to think of it?
I think there's some good ideas in here. I like a lot of the flavor, but at the same time, I know it's supposed to be kind of a light one-shot type of thing, but I feel like there's not much here to really grab onto.
This is definitely a beer and pretzels affair, and because of the whole collaborative story kind of thing, it is somewhat dependent on the table being somewhat genre savvy. Like, if someone wasn't as familiar with the type of game that this is emulating, they might have a harder time than others. I know somebody would say, "Well, the game trusts that people know this kind of thing." That is still one hell of an assumption to make.
Like, I'm fine as long as, like, before anyone buys it, the game itself is clear about that.
Mm-hmm. That being said, with what's there, I'm not entirely sure if $10 is the right price. I feel like a better price might be $8.
I could see people enjoying this, but for me, I don't think there's really enough here. I think you can have a lighter beer and pretzels kind of game with at least a little bit more to it. We saw that with Outgunned. You could definitely just pick that up and play for a game just fine. This, though, I just don't see myself being at all interested in it.
Although I will give credit on this. Gregor Mack, who did the art, did some damn good sprite art.
Oh yeah, the art in this book is fantastic.
I also like that there was that little gear thing on the side when actual mechanics were being written. But this game does have the problem that you see a lot with games that do a very blank check design. And for those who are new to the scene, what is meant by blank check is when you have games that have some sort of fill-in-the-blank narrative element that has some mechanical weight. In that situation, providing decent examples is absolutely paramount. And not only that, but making clear where the line is. And See You in Hell does kind of fall into that trap, where there's examples, but I'm not quite sure what is going too far in terms of being too useful for things like elements.
I'll say because of like for something like what was it? One of the ones before Elements was a bit more blank checky. The items, like your personal item.
Yeah.
Because it's limited in its uses to that degree, I don't think that's as much of a problem. I'm still not fond of it, but it's nowhere near the worst we've seen on this show so far.
I will also say having weapons just be treated as a element, I'm not sure it's going to have the same impact as when somebody gets a brand new weapon in a lot of other games.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's an extra dice. Now, am I saying that they need to have full-on gun mechanics? Well, it couldn't hurt. We already have a risk-reward set up with the whole thing with rage and wounds, so why not? But
Yeah, I think using your scale, I'd come down to recommend, even if I may not play it. Like, if you just want to kill some demons, you don't want to think a whole lot about the system and just kind of hang out. I think the system accomplishes that well enough.
I feel like if it weren't for the strong sense of identity with some of the writing and a lot of the art, I probably would have knocked it one notch lower to playable.
Yeah, I think it's kind of straddling, but I'm happy to put it at recommend.
Now, like I said, I know this was a short one, but it's not a lot to go on here. So it is what it is.
I wasn't expecting the episode to be this short.
Now that being said, next week we will, I believe, have our final thoughts on Megalos.
Weirdly enough, I think we could also title that one "See You in Hell."
Yeah, I think I know where I'm going to be grading it, but I still want to cover that part at the very least for completion's sake.
Yes.
Also, keep an eye out tomorrow as Big, Tabby, and myself continue our look through Farsight, which recently announced that the studio behind it, Lightfish, is going fully independent. And they've apparently got a setting project in the work using Farsight's rule sets. I'll hopefully get to that maybe sometime in 2026. It's still very, very early in development, so I don't expect to hear any news on that for a while. And if everything goes as planned, this Saturday, I'll be interviewing the dev of the steampunk game Nightwatch, as well as doing a interview. Well, at least I'm the one getting interviewed on Legend Edition by friend of the show, Jack Jinseki. I don't know when that interview will actually go live, but it will be shortly after Saturday. And Sunday, tune in for part 2 of the Hangover Shit Show Summer Supercard.
I may be a little late to that one, depending on work, but I should be able to show up for that one finally.
Yep, so keep an eye out for that. But until then, on behalf of the Good Brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra, I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody!